team, Coach Komi and Carlin here from 640S, and we're going to give you an insight to a coach's perspective and a few different breakdowns on what we consider to be hot topics in the CrossFit world.
Hottest topic at the moment, CrossFit Semi-Finals.
CrossFit Semi-Finals.
They start next week, the first ones. There's 2 going on. We're going to be in Brisbane in Australia for the Komi Pro. Over the next 4 weeks, all 10 of those semi-finals will have been completed. 5 of them are online competitions, virtual competitions, and 5 are in-person live competitions out on the floor, some with crowds, some with not.
Yeah, can't wait to get out to Brisbane and to go to the Komi Pro. We're fortunate enough that in our gym we have a total of 4 teams competing in our training program and systems. I think up to about 25 competitors in that CrossFit competition alone. So we're super excited about taking 20% of the field to the teams event for sure. And then probably even more so, it's heading into winter here in New Zealand. And just to get a little bit more degrees north of 10 will be nice out in Brisbane, so that's something that's exciting. It's currently Wednesday and we will be flying out on Monday morning. Competition starts Friday, so it gives us a little bit of lead time there just to prepare their last kind of final touches. But for the most part right now, all the work is done. Yes, we have a few more days training here before we fly out, but again, for the most part, yeah, all the hard stuff is done.
Yeah, that's exactly right. Touring are slowly drip feeding some of the workouts that we're going to see over the weekend. So of course the athletes kind of touching base with those, going through the movements, even just doing the workouts outright. But like you say, work's been done. Priority now is just keeping the athletes healthy, fit, ready for game day when it comes next week.
Absolutely. I think it's nice we segue into you saying that the touring workouts are slowly being drip fed. We've currently seen 3 team events and 4 individual events. Bear in mind that there are teens and masters and pro amateur teams, emerging teams as well. We won't focus on those as such in this conversation. But for what we've seen, it kind of gives us a little bit of a two-sided of the coin story. Whereas for myself, at the very least, for this being a semi-final event, I think that currently what we've seen may be just like a touch underwhelming in terms of the teams events. I don't think that there were kind of any much more progressively difficult than the quarterfinals in terms of volume as well. When you've got a whole day to only do 2 events and the total maximum volume in those events are probably only about 25 to 30% of our training volume in a day. So one, it bodes well for us, and I mean, like, we can say that right now and probably bite us in the butt by not performing, but I don't believe that that's actually going to happen. And the other side of the coin is like, hey, cool, it's only 25-30% of our training volume, and nothing is too daunting for us at this stage. And then the individuals are a different ball game altogether. They actually have quite a decent amount of volume already for what we've seen. There's a nice range of different formattings of the programming and different movements as well. What do you think?
Yeah, much the same. I think from what we can get from the information that's been put out in terms of time frames and scheduling for the teams in the Indies, it looks like the teams are probably just going to have 6 workouts over the whole 3 days. Indies 7, maybe like an extra one thrown at the end that might be a surprise. But yeah, exactly that. So 2 workouts for the teams, knowing that they're only going to have the morning to be doing the work, and then they have the rest of the day to either watch or just recover, go and chill out before the next day's events start again. And like I said, we've seen 3 of the workouts, put 2 of them on one day, and the time frame for them actually doing any sort of work is way back from what they do in training and other comps we've been to as well. But yeah, both ways, bodes well. Looks a little bit underwhelming just because you want to go and make this like kind of like the highlight up until to this point. It may not be like that, but we've seen 3. There's still at least 3 to come. As they come out, it might change our minds.
Things could change, yeah, for sure. Yeah, it's a funny one because, again, like the total volume is down, but then you don't want to get complacent. The job's still the job. I think that we do deserve to have a little bit of confidence because we are seated at number 1, and 3 bar one of our teams, the 4th team, 4 out of the 5 teams that are competing are actually seated 10 or higher. And then the 5th team is seated in 11th out of 20 teams. So yes, there's a bit of confidence there, and I think there's reason to boast for that. And I think the cool thing the cool thing about the workouts that are given is that they are different from what we had in the quarterfinals. So there's like a little bit more guesswork going on, and if we look at the coach's perspective and the design of why we're doing this talk right now, is it gives us something to do, not just something to do, but somewhere where we can place a lot of value onto our athletes and onto our teams in terms of like strategy, preparedness, timings, confidence, mental abilities and capacities, and so many other avenues that probably people don't consider would actually surmount into being factors in a workout, especially in an on-site workout in such an environment. And do you have the discipline to race your own race?
Yes, absolutely. And I think the exciting thing about the workouts that we have seen so far is, you're right, they are different from the quarterfinals. We've seen the gymnastics, the high school gymnastics in there. Obviously there's worm work that we didn't see in the quarterfinals, and now even if just looking up at the lineup of the other teams that are going to be there, because we don't have that explicit data from the quarterfinals to go off, that's kind of where we can jump in and say, like, well, this is what's going to happen here, this is where we think we'll be here, this is where these athletes will be at this point, and how that breaks down through our individual workouts and then across the weekend as well.
Yeah, for sure. It's funny because for the both of us, we absolutely go through and pick apart every single team. We pick apart every member of that team. We look through all the historical data that those people have kind of compiled. Call it over tedious, but hey, it is what it is. It may be a part to reason why we are doing what we're doing, but it does give us an insight as to how we are going to navigate our own kind of game plans. And at the end of the day, you can only do what you can do. Yes, focus on yourself, but we kind of learn, hey, there might be a little bit of a window in this workout, in this portion here, where we can try something out of the ordinary and still not kind of cost us too much if it doesn't pay off. And so those are the things that we look for to kind of push for strengths and moderate our weaknesses as well. But overall, just excited to get out there. First and foremost, it's been a long time since we've been out on the competition floor at such a stage, and we can't say enough that we're ready. We've been ready for weeks, and I think that the cruise is chomping at the bit to not only get out there and compete, but just to get out of the country in general.
See the sunshine.
Well, it's not like we don't have the sunshine.
All right, moving on from that, in this coach's perspective, we're going to go into a movement breakdown. We're going to talk about the ring muscle up. So highly skilled and complex gymnastics movement. We're going to break it down into a few parts, speak on those things, and then kind of give some information about how we look at it as the athletes are going through it in a workout, or just as a skill training situation, and there's certain different aspects of it that we're trying to fine tune as we go through.
Yeah, I think first and foremost, when we look at a movement, and I don't know if this differs from other people, but let's say we see an athlete do 20 muscle ups on the rings, and yes, it's a great number, and from the naked eye they could be like, wow, you're amazing at those, but all of those movements could have been rubbish, and we chose to give them clout or credit because of the number that they achieved rather than how they got to that number. And so from our perspective, we're looking at how each and every single one of those 20 reps were performed. And yeah, 20 is a cool number, but could that 20 have been more efficient and got you 28, 29, 30 or whatever it was? Potentially, if the set was only 20 and you were still able to do more, could we have done 20 with more efficiency to then get into our next movement with more oxygen, with less lactate, or with more ability to get to the next movement and perform the next repetition faster than what we may have been able to. So hopefully we give you a couple of points, and we're not going to overdose you with a whole lot of information, but give you a couple of takeaways that you can use with your own ring muscle ups.
Perfect. Yeah, I think to start with, I'll discuss on how we start the ring muscle up. Pretty simple, but we see it all the time with loads of athletes in whatever sort of capacity or ability that they're at. But our greatest thing to say is that you start directly underneath the rings. So once you jump up, grab the rings with both hands, you jump vertically straight up, not forwards towards the rings. That means you can jump up, hold them, you're at a dead hang, and the rings are not moving to start with. That's the first piece, and then we'll go into a castaway swing. Castaway string. If you've got one of those,
up
you can
to
use
you.
that. Go into a castaway swing. So this is when you're in a dead hang position. You're going to draw your knees up to your chest. You'll shoot your feet out forwards as long as they can. Then you'll drag them back to create that big first arch in your backswing before you go into any sort of turnover or ring muscle up. castaway swing.
And more emphasis to the drag back. That's where we generate the power. That's the only position you need to do it from your window of legs from here to here, coming, this is legs out in front, draw them back. That's enough to what we call draw the bow, shoot the arrow, ping, and that should generate enough momentum to be able to propel your way upwards.
Yeah. And while we're doing that, we're trying to stay as long as we possibly can, hold those nice, beautiful gymnastics positions. So you have pointed toes, you'll be in a nice tight arch position. Knees are not broken at the joint there, but you're in a nice, like Komi said, with the draw the bow, so you're in that nice bow and arrow to then fire through the feet to then get yourself up over the rings on your turnover.
Yeah, I think on the shoot through, so we've now drawn the bow before we shoot the arrow. We like to think that there's an imaginary soccer ball in the bottom of the ring, so vertically underneath the straps, and we're going to kick that ball as hard as we can across the other side of the room. What we do see is a lot of people kick through to about halfway, and then the knees and hips lead the momentum up. I know that there's a movement standard that the feet can't go higher than the rings, but in actuality the rings are here, and a lot of people's feet are stuck like a body length away from the rings, which means that all this is dead weight that you have to pull. So we kick as long as we can to keep our feet almost parallel to the rings, albeit still below the rings, and then generate the hips to go up. And that's going to cause less pulling of the arms. This is going to be the first thing that dies out. Use your body to create the momentum, generate the power, and not your arms, because they obviously will be the first things to die out.
Absolutely. And if you're watching someone from the side on view and you're watching the shapes that the straps make down through their arms right out to the feet, there's always like a nice curve. There's no sharp angles between the straps and the hands, or the hips broken or the knees broken at any point until they start to do an actual turnover where the shape starts to change up as you go through. But on the drawback, and then as your feet shoot forward, as if you're kicking that ball, still nice shapes from the body, the toes right through up to the straps till they hit the ring. There's no sharp angles at any point throughout that.
Absolutely. We could go on about the ring muscle up for days, but we'll just leave it with a couple of those points at the moment. We will revisit this and we'll give little add-ons. It'll probably be like a 5-part movement breakdown, and then we'll hopefully see people be able to take on this knowledge and actually use it in their own muscle ups and help others increase their ability to do their muscle ups as well. Moving on into a workout breakdown and how we design, that will come at some point, but how we would break down a workout and what is going to be best for an athlete, and what kind of game plan should an athlete take, what is even achievable or possible. These are the things that we try and do before we even see something come up, and then we have a pretty good grasp on who's going to do what and where our place is going to be within that leaderboard as well. The workout that we've chosen for today is Amanda 21, and that's from the Torian Pro, coming next week, so this will be relevant to a lot of viewers out there. We've seen individuals do their event. We've seen teams do their event for this workout as well. There are two slightly different variations, and we believe that we've seen some of the top times and the actual top time that we will see as well. So we have some pretty good information here.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so for Torian, the workout is Amanda 21 ring muscle ups, 21 squat snatches, 61 kilos, 43 kilos for the females, but it is straight up like that. So there's Amanda, the name CrossFit WOD is 975 of those movements, but this one's just 21 straight up, move on to the next movement, time cap once you finish your snatches. The indies have ring muscle ups, the teams have bar muscle ups rather than the rings, 4-person synchro and 4-person synchro for the squat snatches as well. So that variation for the teams has some different complexities to it because of the synchro for both movements, but we can still get fairly accurate prediction for times and the placings of our teams as we go through.
Yeah, absolutely. I think we'll start off. I'll do the individual breakdown, you can do the team breakdown, and you can add points in where we see fit. But I was fortunate enough to do the Amanda 21 with Laura Clifton, so she's already a CrossFit Games athlete. She'll be competing at Torian Pro next week, and this is a workout where you have the same amount of reps of a high skill gymnastic movement and then the same amount of reps on the barbell movement. the more difficult movement here is going to slightly differ between a certain style of athlete. This does allow for a not so aerobically fit athlete to do well in, because the time frame to condense all this work down is so short. When we're looking at the muscle ups, you have 21 reps only. Some people will be on the fringe of being able to do all of those unbroken, and some people will competently do those unbroken. Others should shy away from that altogether. Is it won and lost in the ring muscle ups? Not necessarily. Is it won or lost in the barbell? Not necessarily, perhaps more so than the rings, okay? The one thing that we don't want to do is get to the end of those rings and start failing on reps. And one thing to consider is that the damage in the triceps and shoulder stability and the catch for the snatch eventuates in around about that 11 to 15 marker in the snatches. So it's something to look out for early on in the piece. So coming off those rings a little bit earlier, maybe more beneficial for some people than they think. When we get to the Torian Pro, we're actually going to have a different game plan from what we had when we done it in the practice run, and that will be something that we actually look to see if it eventuates into a better situation. The ring muscle ups for myself, I think I went 12.54 versus Laura's 13.341 or something like that. However, I had about 5 snatches done, and then she started her barbell and she came out touch and going her bar and was on 9 reps before I was on 9 reps. So that's just a little indication of where you can make up your time and how you can do so. I believe that at the Torian there will be some incremental advances when you complete a certain number of reps. My assumption is that it will be 7 move, last 7. Which could bode well for touch and go reps. If you aren't competent on a barbell, I do not suggest that at all. You are going to save your shoulders a little bit. If you can knock out a big set of touch and go and then hit the singles, by all means do that. It may be worthy to do touch and go, and then you get your break by pushing your bar forward. You may have enough time to recover in that section. But mainly know your capacity for your ring muscle ups. First and foremost, I would recommend coming down at least 1 shy before failure, 1 rep in reserve, and that's kind of a metric that we use as well. And if not, then it's probably the last rep in the whole total number of 21 that you're taking that risk on. So if you're unsure that you're going to make that 21st rep, but you want to have a crack at it, absolutely have a crack at it. Because if you win big. If you don't, it's not so much of a loss. Whereas if we're missing it at 13, 14, it could be a lot more detrimental than later on in that piece, because we are moving on to the next movement. We're looking at rep speed. So to look at the muscle ups when we are fresher, it's going to be about 2.8 seconds to 3.4 seconds per repetition, versus when it's a little bit fatigued or later in the piece, it's going to be about 3.4 to about 3.8 per repetition. So there's a lot of time where you can condense down. When you are fresher, you can come down, you can afford to save yourself 5 to 10 seconds just in rest times by slowing down the rep speed as if you were still up there. And that's how you can see when people go unbroken versus people breaking it up and they finish at the same time. But they're in 2 different states when they get to the next movement. And that's kind of what we're looking for here. The barbell, I mean, it can be anywhere between 2 and 4 seconds per repetition, but I think that there's less time spent on the bar than there is time spent on the ring muscle ups. And for me personally, I think it's a pretty cool workout, and especially given a competition setting and it's not so difficult in weight, we will see some times go pretty fast. We'll see some mistakes, we'll see some risks, and some risks pay off well as well.
Yeah, I'm excited to see that for the indies and the teams as well. With the teams, it's a slightly different beast, because you're going to be governed by the capacity of your weakest member for this event. So 3 of you or 2 of you might have fantastic gymnastics capabilities and be able to do 21 unbroken without thinking about it. But if you've got 1 or 2 athletes in your team who aren't capable of that, of course that's going to be your determinant there. And there it's just kind of be like managing your sets and your rest in between. So if you know that you're going to do it in 3 or 4 sets, but you're going to jump up and come down and have a rest of say 6 to 10 seconds, you need to hold yourselves to that time. It's easy enough, especially if you're the athlete who struggles with it, with those higher volume gymnastics, to come down and want to wait 20, 30 seconds. But if you just stay disciplined and hold yourself to the rest that you've predetermined beforehand, have one of your teammates who is capable of holding the higher numbers count your rest down, then you can jump back up, do a smaller set, and like Komi said, you can still break up that number, still finish within a relative good time frame, even as fast as someone who's going unbroken. I don't think that we will see many, if any, teams will do those muscle ups unbroken, even though it's on the barbell, on the rig rather, where it's probably a little bit easier to do it than on the rings. but purely just because you're going to be pretty hard pressed to find 4 athletes from a gym with that capacity across the board with all of them to do it. So then saying that, we'll probably see some 2 sets for sure, 3s and 4s absolutely, but even a team will do it in 5 will still do it with relative good time scheme. They won't be blowing it out too much, but yeah, they'll just keep the rest disciplined. What I don't want to see is that a team try and go unbroken, get to 18, miss a rep or have a no rep, try and hold on at the top, then the timing comes out, then the next one's also a no rep, and they should have just come down, taken 5 to 10 seconds and jumped up and finished it without any no reps. And then the team workout like this one, where the total volume is down, no reps, is just wasted energy the whole time. So be on the same on the muscle ups and then on the squat snatches as well. It's just communication. For the teams, I doubt we'll see many touch and goes. It should just be singles from the start with set rest in between. It can be urgency held between each rep. And same thing. They just have someone who's holding the team accountable, like having a countdown between each rep and having that consistent the whole time with some urgency between. And it'll just be solid. They'll catch it, stand up, count the rep, drop, go down, hands back on, cycle through with no missed reps. 21 total squat snatches at this loading shouldn't be too difficult for most of the athletes there, but it's just going to be that time in between and make sure that every rep you get counts. You don't want to mess them up whatsoever.
Absolutely. The teams are a whole different monster altogether, where every repetition matters because it's such a difficult process to get synchronization going between all 4 team members. But furthermore, what's often not considered, especially from a predetermined workout, is that the kind of arousement of the environment and the flusteredness that comes in and the panic mode. So yeah, you could be all fine, like, yeah, we're going to do 6 and 10 seconds rest before we go in there, but then when something fails, how do you recover from that? How do you have a calming chat within it? How do you settle down? How do you do that when other people are racing forward and you think, I need to go faster to be faster? Sometimes it's actually, I need to be slower to be faster. And so those are things that you need to consider if you haven't been there before. At that level, you'll definitely learn about it. Our hope is that you take it away and you do something useful with it. But do as much understanding as you can before even getting out there, and try to keep yourself and your team as calm and as comfortable as possible. Yes, there are times where we need to work a little bit harder. Yes, there are times where hard words need to be said and someone just needs to kick up the bum. But pick and choose your moments. I think for the squat snatches, maybe a good example of someone that is able to kind of take lead. If there is only a synchro at the bottom or the top, or say rather at the top of the snatch, then someone absolutely can just put their hands on the bar and just do a snatch and wait at the top, which will force the other 3 members to be like, I've got to get my shit together and do my rep now, rather than wait a 3, 4, 5 second turnaround. So someone can kind of take the lead and do that as well.
Yeah, and it's those sort of situations where the team either like kind of thrives or it breaks down further. So if 3 of the athletes are stood up and someone misses a snatch, do they then waterfall, drop their barbells, or continue holding it there so that person can again squat snatch, stand up and still get the rep, and it's just one person having to work just a little bit quicker to get match where everybody else is at? Or is everybody dropping down and there's wasted time there as well? And like under the lights with the crowd and everyone racing around you, music's loud. When those sort of situations arise, how does a team deal with it on the rig or on the barbell to gather themselves, talk, communicate quickly and with accuracy to then continue forward with the movement without blowing out time and arguing amongst each other?
Yeah, it's a process. It's an absolute journey. We won't dive off too much more into that, but what we do hope is that we see you out in the semi-finals for wherever you are competing in the world, and that you just have a good time and enjoy it and take home a lot of takeaways where you can either improve or maybe things could be better for next time, or even things that went well. Don't forget to celebrate those moments too, but most importantly, have fun. I guess just to sign off on this episode, just a plug for the affiliate programming for 6-4 Training Systems. There are many affiliates scattered throughout New Zealand and Australia that are on the programming. So if you're in a region, if you're in a city out there and you're like, hey man, I want to be a part of this, I want to do some of what they're doing, message us and we can definitely align you to follow the gyms that are in certain locations. And hey, if you're a gym owner out there and you want to be a part of this as well, give us a buzz. We'll be more than happy to help and spread the 6-4 army.
Cool. To finish off today, what's happening right now? What has happened right here? Some other celebrations.
It's your wife's birthday.
It's my wife's birthday.
It's a celebration. Do you celebrate?
We will celebrate right after this.
Good.
Right after this.
Is that what else?
Happy birthday.
Happy birthday, Ella.
Yeah. See you later.
What else?
What else we got going on?
What did you say celebrate? Alice got a PR clean and jerk at 80 kilos.
Did.
Young
She
lady.
did. Just after PRing at 75.
Yep.
Why not add
16 years old, out at semi-finals, so potentially the youngest one there. We're gonna look into that.
Yeah, in the elite division.
Yeah,
for sure. The elite open division.
Tessa Takahu qualified for the CrossFit Games, masters athlete from 6'4". Absolutely proud of her. She's also competing out at Torian at the semi-finals. This lady has all the potential in the world to go to the podium at the CrossFit Games. Reflection on a couple of her scores in the quarterfinals. The age group qualifiers. She actually won an event. She got second in another. It's a little bit dubious. She probably won that as well. But the fact of the matter is she got the goods.
She's got the goods. Yeah. And then just seeing her scores and the top athletes who actually qualify for the games, and the ones that she didn't do as well in, I mean, amongst those athletes, still did really well.
Yeah.
So even though her scores might say she got 58th or what have you, that's across all the athletes who did the online qualifiers. Against the athletes who will just be competing at the games, they're more like 5th and 6th. So everything bodes well. And we are proud, Tessa.
We're proud.
We are proud.
Well done. What else?
What else?
Did I get it?
I think we got it.
Oh, there we go.
I think we got it. Luke's here.
Alright, random fact of the day. What do you got?
The dot at the top of an I, the little dot when you do a lowercase I, it's called a tittle.
That is good. I can't top that, so we're gonna exit with that. The tittle. Don't forget the tittle.
There you go.
The titty? The tittle. The tittle. The tittle. It's the first time I've ever said that word. I don't know, it feels a little uncomfortable.
There you go.
The tittle.
The tittle.
Yeah, I like it. Cool.
Alright.
Blessed day.